Many centuries before the knight dominated the battlefields of medieval Europe. Far to the east, their predecessor, the Cataphract, a heavily armored mounted warrior, inspired awe and terror in their opponents. Cataphract is a transliteration of a Greek term meaning covered with armor, which accurately describes this class of horse and rider. The earliest known heavily armored human and horse collaborations were utilized by the empires of the late ancient Near Eastern Bronze Age. Chariots, drawn by horses covered in barding, which is horse armor, carried bronze-clad warriors, a truly expensive and potent symbol of imperial might. Much later, the Assyrian Empire was the first state to use large numbers of cavalry on the battlefield, beginning in the 9th century BC. Gradually, all major states replaced chariots with cavalry in their armies. On the periphery of the Iranian plateau, in what is now Turkmenistan and Afghanistan, semi-nomadic Iranian-speaking peoples began using significant amounts of armor on larger breeds of horses. The Persian Achaemenid Empire incorporated these heavy cavalry troops in their armies. These were the earliest iterations of cataphracts used. After the empire's conquest by Alexander, the succeeding Seleucid and Parthian empires further developed the tactics, arms, and armor of the cataphract. During the Parthian Empire, the cataphract developed into a more heavily armored horseman than ever before, being almost completely covered in metal. They carried the kontos, a cavalry pike, which was an adapted version of the Greek zaistin used by the Seleucids. The Romans first came into contact with the cataphracts through conflict with these empires, as well as with the Iranian-speaking Sarmatians, who had migrated to the north of the Roman Empire. The Romans were slow to integrate their use. Captured enemies and small units of foreign auxiliary troops were the first cataphracts used in Roman armies, notably the Sarmatians and Armenians. The true age of the cataphract occurred during the 3rd through 7th centuries AD, after the Sassanid Persians overthrew the Parthians. High-quality cataphracts were used in greater numbers, not only by the Sassanians, but also by the Romans. Sassanid strategy and tactics were intrinsically different from the Parthians. While the Parthians preferred to fight a defensive war of attrition against the Romans within their own familiar territory, the Persians were far more aggressive, choosing to invade and fight on Roman territory. On the battlefield, the Parthians heavily relied on the hit-and-run tactics of their skilled mounted archers. Only when an enemy was exhausted, wounded, and frustrated would the cataphracts, comprised of the Parthian nobility, be sent in to break and mop up the enemy infantry. Cataphracts would also be used to protect their own horse archers from light enemy cavalry counterattacks, while a typical Parthian army included a little more than 1,000 cataphracts. In contrast, a standard Sassanid army on campaign would field over 10 times that number. The Savaran cataphracts formed the vanguard of the Sasanian battle order, and would directly engage Roman heavy infantry, which were still arguably the best in the world, while supported by horse archers to their rear. If the opposing army did not break after the initial charge, the Savaran would withdraw to the rear, while being covered by volleys from the horse archers. Alternatively, a similar strategy was also employed where infantry followed the cataphracts' initial assault. In reaction to Sassanid Persian success on the battlefield, the Romans did what they did best. They adapted. Over the 3 centuries of strife between the two great empires, the Romans recruited an ever-increasing number of cataphracts, not only from enemy captives, allies, and vassals, but from imperial citizens, particularly from provinces with strong horse-riding traditions, such as Macedonia, Thessaly, Thrace, Syria, and Lesser Armenia. Over time, cataphracts transitioned from specialized foreign auxiliary troops of minor importance to the most prestigious and renowned units in the empire. They adopted many Iranian arms, armor, and cavalry techniques. Throughout their history, the Sassanid Persians also greatly increased the number of cataphracts in their army. They were able to equip, maintain, and train more, because they were significantly wealthier and more populous compared to the earlier Parthian Empire, which only equipped the most venerable nobility as cataphracts. The Sasanian elite heavy cavalry were known as the Savaran. At the top, the 7 great houses of the Sassanid Empire, called the Wuzargan, supplied the most formidable cavalry, for which no expense was spared. These extended families were very large, with thousands of members and hundreds of military-age males. many of whom fought with retinues of additional cataphracts equipped by the family. The House of Sassan was the first of these great houses, led by the Shah, meaning King of Kings. The 6 other great houses were of complete or partial Parthian ancestry, and were engaged in a near constant power struggle with the Shah. More numerous in the Savaran were the Azadan, a large class of higher nobility. They trace back their ancestry to those that fought alongside Cyrus the Great and established the first Persian Empire over 1,000 years before the fall of the Sassanids. In the later portion of Sassanid history, the Deccan class of lower landed semi-nobility also joined the ranks of the Savaran, greatly increasing their numbers. Additionally, vassal kings, such as the Kushan Shahs and the Armenian king, often fought alongside the Sasanian Shah, accompanied by their own contingents of cataphracts. Both Parthian and later Sassanid cataphracts used the kontos to great effect. On initial impact with infantry, Roman writers recounted how 2 men could be impaled at once by the great spear. In addition to a long slashing sword, which was always carried as a sidearm, a wide variety of maces and axes were also used in close combat. Maces were the preferred Persian weapon when locked in combat with heavy infantry or with other cataphracts. Often, cataphract armor was of such high quality that a slash from a sword or a thrust from a lance would cause little to no significant damage or glance right off. In contrast, the percussion of a mace strike could break the bones of a horseman wearing the latest and greatest armor, or if struck on the head, he could be rendered unconscious or incapacitated. The Savaran also practiced a regimented weight training and martial arts still practiced today and recognized by UNESCO as the world's longest running form of strength training. This greatly aided the Savaran in their cranium-crushing activities, where heroic titles could be granted, such as having the strength of 1,000 men. Mid to later Sassanid Savaran also carried a bow, so that if the situation presented itself, enemy infantry could be softened up before the charge. There are also accounts that the Savaran carried a weapon, which was 5-shot and single use, and may have been a peculiar type of crossbow. After more than 3 centuries of war with the Romans, in which both empires expended massive amounts of human and material resources, the Sassanid dynasty fell to the First Arab Empire. Savaran cataphract arms, tactics, and culture did not die with them. These had already been adopted by the Turks, and the Arabs soon after, as the Romans had done earlier. Through interaction with Rome, the Germanic kingdoms that arose in the ashes of the Western Roman Empire adopted elements of cataphract weapons, tactics, and culture. These were modified and improved over the centuries, and evolved into the iconic knights, from the Normans through the Crusades and Renaissance. The Savaran cataphracts' personal heraldry and jousting for honor and to settle conflicts would have been aspects of their culture that would have seemed very familiar to medieval knights. Despite the similarities, there were several notable differences between the two. The Roman cataphract survived and continued to evolve, and would have been quite similar to the earliest medieval knights of Western Europe, which later surpassed them in the development of their military technology. For this video I spent well over a week, and many hours working on this drawing. I really enjoyed making it and hope you like it. If so, please leave a like. That really helps me to continue doing what I love. Today I just hit 300,000 subscribers, which is amazing. I never thought I'd get there when I first started this channel. And I can't thank all of you enough. Patrons, subscribers, viewers, from the bottom of my heart. Thank you for making my life so enjoyable. And I hope I have made yours a little more entertaining, educational, and enjoyable as well. This has been Epimetheus. Thank you so much for watching.